Good morning to our viewers on the West Coast and good afternoon to our viewers on the East Coast. Welcome to People Science's webinar, More for Miss. My name is Jessica Oberto, Chief Operating Officer at People Science, and we're happy that you've joined us today. If you're new to People Science, we are a talent acquisition consulting and RPO firm that helps organizations solve complex hiring challenges. Through customized recruiting strategies, scalable recruiting solutions, and innovative technology, we partner with employers to attract, hire, and retain the talent they need to achieve their business goals. If you'd like to learn more about us, please reach out after today's webinar. If you haven't been on our webinars before, you'll find out that these are more conversational between the panel. So at any point, if you'd like to include something or ask a question, please use the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we'll do our best to make sure we get back to you. We'll be sharing a deck today that will also be sent to you after the webinar. And on to our panelists. First, we have Christine Nicholas, the founder and CEO of People Science and HireGate, which she founded in 1997. A recognized thought leader in talent acquisition, Christine has helped organizations solve complex hiring challenges and align talent acquisition with business outcomes. She is the creator of People Science's recruiting continuum methodology and has led the development of innovative recruiting processes, technologies, and analytics that support some of the nation's most respected organizations. Christine is also the driving force behind HireGate, People Science's AI-powered recruitment intelligence platform. As a frequent speaker and advisor, she brings deep expertise in TA, recruiting technology, and the future of work. Next, we have Lindsay Roundtree. Lindsay is the Chief Talent and Product Officer at People Science and HireGate, where she oversees the talent acquisition solutions and product strategy teams, including the continued evolution of the HireGate platform. Lindsay has worked across nearly every facet of the business, developing deep expertise in recruitment operations, client service, workforce strategy, and recruiting technology. She partners closely with organizations to design and implement TA programs that improve hiring performance, enhance candidate experience, and support business growth. Lindsay is also recognized for her ability to blend recruiting expertise with technology innovation, helping our clients navigate an evolving talent landscape through practical, results-driven solutions. So with that, Christine, I will hand it over to you.
So good morning and good morning on the West Coast. Hello here on the East Coast, almost lunch in the Midwest, right? Thank you, Jess. I don't think you said too much about yourself though, right?
No, thanks, Christine. I've been at People Science for almost 14 years now, have grown up in the world of recruitment and seen many changes along the way. I lead the talent acquisition team here at People Science, as well as our RPO implementation teams.
And the advisory side. So I want to mention that. Just a big shout out to both Jess and Lindsay. This trio, along with Brian Easley, our Chief Technical Officer, have been together for almost 15 years. And this is a crucial time, right, for all of us in work in general, but we're going to take a look at that today about TA. So without further ado, and I'm going to apologize in advance because Jess is letting me drive the deck, which means it may or may not go the way it's supposed to go every time. So just stay with us. Let's do a snapshot up front of where we are. We do, if this is the first time you're attending, we do this every month that we do a webinar, which we try to do monthly. We try to bring you up to date on the metrics that are most important to talent acquisition. So looking at the JOLTS report, jobs added April 2025 through April 2026. I think this is an important grid because there's so much speculation and there's so much noise out there across between economists, people actually in HR, SHRM, and then of course the entire political cycle about what's going on. So we find that coming back to true numbers, real values are important, but this is an interesting snapshot. So as we look at jobs added, again, it's our industry, it's jobs added that keep contributing to this healthy kind of work environment. Now, healthy as far as strong in numbers is concerned, but there's so many, I'm going to say there's this dichotomy out there of everything's moving in the right direction and everything's sliding backwards. So just because numbers exist does not mean that they're counting emotions and direction of organizations and your culture and where you're going. If you're coming through layoffs right now, if you're seeing a readjustment, if you're looking to retrain yourself, these numbers don't feel good. But truth out, our jobs economy, even though it's a little stalled, right? So it's been stalled for about a year. Now we're seeing a tick up not just in April, but also indicators in May and then full on in June. So it'll be really interesting next month to take a look at these numbers again. For jobs added, I think especially this year, I'm going to continue with this through the end of the year so we can look at 23, 24, 25, and 26. Because when we get these startling numbers, it does pay to take a look and say, are we really that outlandish? So when we look at 2023 and 2022, actually, that were anomalies in the work world, right, coming out of the pandemic, everybody's scaling up, a lot of confusion in talent acquisition, lots of hiring, and then we see it depreciate a little bit. I think we're seeing a balance out because 25 does not look all that different right now from 26. So let's see what happens through till the end of the year. Okay, April 2025, our unemployment rate still holding the same, right? A little bit up in November, all the way back in April. Here we are at 4.3. So these key indicators stay the same, and we know there's a lot going on behind them. Talking about diversity. So again, in case you're new, every month we talk about diversity, return to work, AI and technology, as far as all these things are related to talent acquisition. So here's an update from last month. Federal court challenges to DEI related execution actions continue, creating uncertainty for employees. So there's that uncertainty is still out there. How am I labeled? Am I labeled? Am I going to get the support? What is the support that I need? There's still a lot of, this is all still new when it comes to pragmatically circulating new executive orders into organizations and then having that dwindle down to the workforce population. Several Fortune 500 companies have shifted from DEI branding to belonging. Personally, I like the word belonging. And having dedicated maybe less 22 years to diversity in the workforce, I think there's a lot of good things going on. We can talk about, maybe we do a whole webinar on that, Lindsay, and Jess, in about 2 months. But as we run into these, what you might call roadblocks and depreciation, we're also seeing some really new inventive processes, different people jumping into the space and changing the way we're thinking about diversity as a whole. So moving to the word belonging, looking at workforce strategy and talent excellence. It's kind of like life. Diversity finds a way. It always does. We have a country built on diversity. So my thought is that we're going to see that continue to grow. AI governance frameworks increasingly require bias testing and documentation as part of the enterprise risk management. So this weekend I had an interesting event that I thought was important. And since we're going to talk about AI, I wanted to bring it up. This is my friend Sharon. It was her birthday. And one of our friends, I'm in a group text, and one of our friends put a picture of the group, which was interesting, and said to AI, make us look better. Well, as you can see, Sharon is Asian descent, and AI made almost all of us Asian. So I found this interesting, right? So as we talk about AI, is it gospel truth? It's working on it. It doesn't mean that it's there. So that same person that posted this job, I shouted out to her and I said, look, we're all Asian. And she came back and said, just make us look good. This doesn't look anything like my friends. I'm in there. I don't know if you can spot me. But this is AI's interpretation of what's going on. So when we talk about bias, thinking in those terms, I think that this is a good example of what's actually still happening. Now, this is not a tool I would think that we would use necessarily in our organizations, but I think as Lindsay can attest, we see a lot of bumps when it comes to AI right now as far as profiling and bias. So staying on the edge of that. Anything to add, Lindsay, before we move past this topic?
I just agree with you, Christine, when it comes to AI, especially when it comes to editing and things like that. Always make sure you're giving it a second look before you just hit the send button, right? Because you don't want it to take more of, who you actually are out of it. And you want to validate, right? Because sometimes AI doesn't get it right. It's still learning.
And I think, we say, what role will we play? And we're going to talk about that a lot today. Maybe that's one of the roles, policing AI.
Yes.
Okay. Return to office. You'd think the topic would die, right? I'm like, oh, we're pounding this into the ground. And I keep thinking it's going to die, but every day I get alerts about what's happening. And it's interesting because there's still this low level feeling out there. But let's take a look at some of the strides and not so big strides. Additional large employers continue expanding the 4 and 5 day in-office requirements, with several firms tightening attendance enforcement through badge tracking and manager accountability. Analysts expect additional Fortune 100 companies to announce stricter office guidelines about coming back to work for the second half. So the momentum on RTO is getting is growing as compared to ceasing. In-office requirements up to 12 are up to 12%. Actual attendance is only 1 to 3%. I'm just going to repeat that, right? The expectation is 12%. The actual attendance is only 1 to 3%. And if you visited any large organization that has a large facility and you go in there and you see the empty seats, you get that feeling because it keeps happening repeatedly to us. Many organizations report ongoing gaps between stated policy and actual employee attendance, increasing that pressure on management to be the enforcers. And I think, we had some conversations last month about what is the role of HR as compared to the manager when it comes to RTO. So it'll be interesting to see how that evolves. Employee preference for flexibility remains strong among younger workers and highly skilled professionals. I want to add, too, that also return to work is also high on their priority list. So even though it's not an even match, I think we see a little bit more, give me the flexibility, but I do want to be in office, is the resounding theme from younger generations. Employers continue reporting retention challenges among top performers and hard to fill technical roles when flexibility isn't there. And when you reduce that flexibility, it's like, don't manage me, right? Let me have this flexibility that I'm used to. When I think about RTO, and our organization, by the way, was fully in-house on the East Coast and the West Coast, and we had maybe 2 or 3 people who have been with us for years that were remote. But in our experience, you can't go back. If you've already been out there and you try to take an employee that's got flexibility and doing pretty well and bring them in-house, I don't know how anybody manages that effectively. So the operative word here is flexibility. Hybrid work remains the dominant model across the knowledge. Even though you're hearing everything else and there's all kinds of headlines, it's still hybrid, still at the top. Organizations are increasingly evaluating the retention costs, recruiting challenges, and productivity impacts when revising workplace policies. So we see this head on, everybody's going to come back. I don't think it's working. I think going back to that flexibility is important. Let's see what happens this time next year. I think we're going to see this swing in the other direction. I think we're going to see a lot more focus on creating a flexible workforce and staying there as compared to trying to shut it down. So just like water finds its way, this is going to find its way. HR leaders report growing concerns about manager-employee conflict, morale, and consistency over policy enforcement. That's because it's wishy-washy itself. So, good segue into what we're going to talk about today, which is our Morph and Miss topic, but let's take a snapshot of AI at work first. Nearly half of organizations report they've implemented AI without redesigning workflows, while only a small minority have redesigned work at scale around AI. The focus is shifting from AI deployment to AI-enabled operating models. Employers increasingly expect AI proficiency from new hires, creating a growing gap in the workforce expectation and the preparation. AI skills continue to function as a strong hiring advantage across multiple occupations. We say this repeatedly to the people that say to us, what should I be doing while I'm sitting on the bench? Or what should I be doing while I'm waiting for my next opportunity? Learning how to use it in whatever sense. And here's some of the pieces in HR that we're seeing it come to fruition with. Organizations are hiring for AI governance, AI operations, automation, prompt engineering, and AI integration roles rather than technical AI positions. So that's interesting. So we're seeing a lot more coming out of development and moving into operations. Gartner reports AI-related job postings in some sectors have increased dramatically while talent availability continues to lag. This is true. Oh, by the way, if we went back to those numbers, there was a significant increase in the services businesses and the service industries, meaning administrative support within organizations for the first time since I think almost 7 or 8 months ago. We've seen a significant increase in that type of new positions posting, and I believe a lot of that has to do with the propensity of moving towards AI. AI tools are increasingly embedded into day-to-day work. BCG reports 74% of frontline employees are now regular AI users. This number was only 48% last month, so it's interesting to see it climb. But organizational structures and job designs have not kept pace with the adoption. They haven't, right? Although I'm not going to see that as a negative necessarily. I think we've got to get everybody using it and starting to get some level of comfortability before we start changing our operations around. And companies are increasingly redesigning tasks rather than entire jobs. Interesting, right? Task rather than the entire jobs. Good segue once again. So before we move into the topic of Morph and Myth, any questions or comments that we should know about? Anybody in the audience have anything they wanted to share?
I don't think so, but I was thinking when you're talking about return to office, Christine, I think it's interesting that AI is forcing us to rethink work itself, right? Which is the core theme of today's webinar. But at the same time, we're debating where work gets done. We're also redefining how work gets done. So I think the leaders who focus solely on office attendance may be missing the bigger transformation happening here around task design, automation, where humans and AI can collaborate in the workforce.
How do you think RTO is going to affect that? Like not being in the office as a company that's fully remote? How's that work for us?
I think as we're having more of these conversations about how AI is changing, particularly for talent acquisition and becoming a work architect and redesigning how the work gets done, I think it'll prove the business case that you don't necessarily need to be in the office 5 days a week. There's so many things that can be automated or be done by technology at this point. So I think it'll build a stronger business case for flexibility and return to office.
And AI is giving us more of an ability to keep track of our employees, their production, the daily usability of things. And like Jess said, even the ability to automate some of those mundane tasks that sit with us, that I think it plays a big part in making that decision and empowering ourselves and our employees to have new tools and have new faith that they can do their work wherever they are.
So many changes happening at once.
Mhm.
And what we're looking at here, more from this and what we're talking about today. This is this information and the trajectory of where talent acquisition is going is why I've taken a deep dive. So I personally have, I'm going to say since 22, kept my nose to the grindstone studying AI and how it's evolving for me personally and for our organization and for our clients. We are a talent acquisition company. So staying on the edge, and especially on our advisory side, and looking at the future and saying where things are going is what we really pride ourselves on our ability to do that. And we've had some pretty big wins over the last 28 years by staying ahead of the game. This is a game like none other. So I appreciate you being here. Some of the things I'm going to talk about today could get my butt in trouble, that's for sure. But if you're seeing Lindsay and Jess, I think our whole management team is like, really? I have spent a long time, especially in the last 6 months, immersed in this. There's no hiding from AI. Sure, it's making my friend Sharon look weird with us in the picture, but the truth is it's learning so quickly. As soon as it has, it doesn't have to go through the emotions that we go through or employees go through when they do something wrong to get better at what they do. It just fixes it. Anybody who's used ChatGPT, if it comes, or any one of them, Claude, any Perplexity, and you've said, no, that's not what I meant. Look how fastly it recovered and how nice it was about its recovery, even if you have the niceness section turned off, right? So the thing about, I think that if I could impress one thing is nothing's the same. It's difficult to pinpoint specifics about the future. Although I will tell you 6 months ago, I said, I've got to do that. Right? I felt like we had to, people science, take a look at a trajectory and put a line in the sand, because not only are we making these projections, but we're making these projections come to fruition. Because if you can look at the advantages of AI, get over the fear of change, stay in that quadrant of newness, of that entrepreneurial thinking, of that coming out of the box, then you're able to really map this out. What you've got to be able to do, though, is put a lot of trust in yourself and in the reality and try to make it non-biased. In all the conferences, and I've been to a lot of them, I've seen people from MIT, Stanford. There's a guy from Wharton who's just really put his feet into this. Actually, he's the dean of entrepreneurship. So I'm trying to remember his name, but I don't know if you remember it off the top of your head. But one of the things that is interesting is in his classes, he has his grad students create a business strategy, and two of his business strategies that were based on AI were funded before they even left Wharton. So there's a lot of money, a lot of smart people, and a lot of attention going into this direction. Let's take a look at what that's going to mean for us. But first and foremost, stay open. I'm going to be looking at the chat and paying attention to your questions and concerns that you have along the way. But if you can bear with us, I think you'll get some good info. Okay. So here's the old playbook, right? And notice this is the old playbook, but it's where most of us are right now. You take a job, Take a job requisition and you fill the job requisition. Take a job, fill a job. But here's the reality check. Those of us who've been in the workforce since the 80s and the 90s understand that Microsoft came into the seat, right? And upgrades, anybody who's had the Microsoft suite and you've seen it evolve, how long does it take to make an update? I mean, I think we've been on 10 or 360 now for, I don't know, 8-9 years, right? And that's how long it takes to see these changes take place. But AI works in weeks. HireGate, for example, in 2020, we took it in-house, took it off-shelf, rewrote it, and put AI tools into it. The same roadmap for us for a feature such as creating candidate overviews automatically that would normally run our recruiters. Well, let me put it this way. We implemented it. So we got the request from a large employer to create candidate overviews, took it to our development team, our HireGate development team, told them on Thursday night, Saturday night at midnight, it was ready. Lindsay's team piloted on Monday. By Wednesday, it was ready to go live. It double checked itself. By Friday, it was fully automated. The following Monday started. It's saving our recruiters 4 hours a week. That took less than 2 weeks. How long is it? When's the last time we got an update on Outlook? Outlook's my nemesis. And it's interesting because I did see the chief product officer around AI for Microsoft speak, and she had a different story and a different take on things. So I think one of the things that's become abundantly clear is the current providers that we have, the applicant tracking systems, the background check companies, anybody that you have a relationship with right now, it's really important, I think, to look at their AI policies and their AI trajectory, because they're not necessarily going to share that with you. And it's very difficult to take an elephant or a big ship and move it into a different direction. So there's a lot of money in these organizations, but it doesn't necessarily mean they have the best answer, because in all of those cases, they're sitting with their own personal gains. This flexibility and the things that are coming around, if you keep paying homage to what used to work and aren't able to take this into your own mindset, your own organization, you're going to be blockaded because your suppliers are not necessarily embracing it yet. Okay. The real question is not how do we use AI, right? And that's what we hear all the time. But it is what still works. What works that won't be automated? Different question. So optimization versus transformation. I love these terms because they're common, and they're common in HR, and it's good to have anything that's common right now, especially when you're digging into these lofty thoughts and projections. Most AI conversations in TA are way too small. It's how you get smart at it's how you get smart at it. It's how you implement it. It's how you get to know it, but they're really too small because the effects are going to come so fast and so hard, as you can already see, that if you aren't staying in a big picture, you're going to fall behind. So what does optimization mean? It means better sourcing, faster screening, automated outreach. And that's what we're doing, right? We're using faster screening tools, we're using better sourcing tools, and we're automating our outreach. That would be an optimization. Transformation, on the other hand, means redesigning how work is defined, questioning whether to hire at all, and building human and AI workflows. See the difference? This is not, this is not your mama's TA. This is not your mama's operational changes. This is transformation like we've never seen before. Big, furious, cost-saving, complex, but it's there. And if you like to be in a meaty profession, this is the one. Okay. In the optimization, we have small gains, same model. I think the irony is 3-4 years ago, we would have said these are big gains. It is a big gain. When you can cut your sourcing time in half, it's a big gain. When you can implement something like we did and save, it's a big gain. But in the big picture, it's a small, small gain. Because transformation, the new model has a new influence. Talent acquisition changes considerably. The uncomfortable truth. AI will do much of today's recruiting cycle better, faster, and cheaper. I did not want to get behind this. I want to tell you everything that's wrong with that. I do not want to see recruiting be automated, and I was dead wrong. The deeper I go, the more I look at the products and process, the more I look at some of the products that are there. And we've actually now morphed a section of HireGate, which is going towards a full automation of the complete cycle from beginning to end. And it doesn't look anything like it does now. It doesn't look like you post a rec, you fill a rec. It looks like the work. Let me jump ahead, Jess. Okay. Most of the process, as we know, it is being automated. And it's just better at it. I know that there's a lot of people who are going to say nobody can interview like a person, nobody can take things into consideration like they can. You would be surprised at what AI can do. And this is not happening in the future. This technology exists now and it works. And it doesn't kind of work, it works well. It's happening right now. So the shift, asking what is the best way to get work done? Sorry, my phone's asking what's the best way to get the work done. So let's take a look at one position. For example, this is a need. We need a marketing manager. So normally you would get a requisition for a marketing manager, right? You review the skill set, you hire for the job, you hope for the best. After your transformation, after this shift, this is going to happen whether you get on board or not. How does the work get executed? I just want to pause here for a second. Can you imagine how much value you can bring to the organization if you had a cadre? Let's say you're supporting customer service. And let's say you have a cadre of vendors, AI vendors, that can make a more efficient customer service department. How much value would that bring to your hiring manager that you can sit across the table and understand what's available and what's working in their space through AI right now, as far as work is concerned? So now we need this work executed. It's not, this is the job that needs to be done. So in this case, let's just take a snapshot, and we made some of this up, but campaign strategy built, execution of the strategy, managing content production, coordinate across teams, and monitor and adapt performance. That's the actual work. This is the moment. So what at this place in time, the moment in TA completely reinvents itself. Not incrementally, here, use this tool, oh, use this screener. Not with better tools, but a full 180. Instead of optimizing that old model, trash it. We replace it. The insight, the old question, who do we hire, now becomes, how should this work? Sorry, not who. See, I'm stuck on the who. How should this work get done? What's the best way to accomplish? Should we hire at all? Again, new concepts. I'm going to back up a minute. Forget the job description. You look at the work and you say to yourself, should we hire at all? The new role of the recruiter will be not to fill jobs. They'll design how this work gets done. So picture this. AI starts to take over the mechanics of recruiting, right? What happens to the recruiter? Where you used to have 30 recruiters supporting high volume, it's now being done with a robot. Now what happens to you? What happens to the recruiter? This is the moment where we can really step up to the plate and become the work architect. How do you do that? Start first with deconstruction the actual work. Look at what the actual work is. Explore the solution. What's the best way to get it done via the ecosystem, which we're going to jump to in a second. Just stay with me for the next two buckets. Then design. Build it the right mix utilizing the ecosystem. And then new hire performance and adapt as needed. So measure and adapt as needed. And then start it all over again. So what is this new ecosystem? So right now, if you look at the fan across the board, you've got a requisition. You're going to go out, you're going to use a tool to recruit for it. In the new world, when we do the transformation, you're going to come in and say, what's the work that needs to be executed and how do we get it done? And this is your new ecosystem to accomplish the work. Looking at AI, and AI, especially at this point in time, needs to be considered for everything. So if we're looking at this marketing manager and saying, okay, where is this best served? Is it an AI agent? And I know this because I'm aligned with the business and I know what customer service is needed, or in this case, I know the marketing tools that are out there. I know the AI that's out there. So I know the work that can be accomplished. If you only left here today, aligning with your business partners moving forward and understanding the AI that can support their operations, your whole life would change. I mean, the value that you could bring to the organization is crazy great if you think about it. So if you can go into the warehouse and say, oh, do we know these 3 vendors? And I've already vetted them. and they're in my arsenal and I know who they are. Now I'm becoming the architect. The second vehicle would be your contingent staff, looking at them. Should this be outsourced or insourced? As AI is developing, there's been a big demand moving towards outsource. Because if you've got a supplier that's micro understanding whatever you're trying to accomplish, there's a good chance they can get it done ahead of you trying to steer a big ship into a different direction. So really looking at contingent workers and outsourcing work is becoming very popular. Looking at your internal teams, looking at referrals, we're going to take a deeper dive in a second, how you're sourcing and your incoming. So in essence, we take our marketing manager and we say, what's an agent? What's the work that's left? Where does that work fit best? Before we even get into looking at incoming, posting a job, or sourcing. Any questions or comments that I can answer about that at this point? Lindsay, Jess, anything to say?
I think with this, internal mobility may become more important than external hiring. So if AI is changing work faster than we can hire for it, I think maybe the answer isn't always external recruiting. It could sometimes be identifying adjacent skills that you already have within your internal workforce and helping those employees evolve. So that's something to think about as you're looking at training and development internally.
Exactly.
I do think it's really important to consider where AI can come into play when we're creating new jobs and things along those lines, and looking at the ecosystem this way, really adding that AI agent into the mix, not just your incoming, your source, your referrals, your internals, which is what most of us in the industry are so used to really looking at. Considering the AI agent in the mix is going to be really important for our planning purposes and all of that moving forward. So I'm glad that we're talking about that now. I think that there has to be a couple of people who feel a bit intimidated by that on this call or on your teams, that certainly would feel that intimidation factor. But I think the more that we adapt and pivot to cover the gaps that live there now and implement the AI where necessary, the better it will start to feel.
I think, this is really where that opportunity lies. This is where it's going. I mean, it's not like we're going to see this stop. AI isn't going to stop. It may slow down. And while we're on that, I will bring this up. I have been spending the last couple of weeks really looking at what are the hindrances? Like, what are things that would slow down the progression of AI? First off, for the AI tools specifically, I don't see them slowing down, but I see the influence changing, right? So 42% of AI was using Reddit. That's changed. We should look at those statistics again, Jess, and pull those up. We'll do that for next month. So AI itself is changing, but looking at the cost for AI, right? So we've just seen, was it Uber? Uber just put a cap on spend mostly for their developers. Because I think they had a month where they spent $700,000 on AI credits. So if you're not using AI or using it limited, or you don't have looking glass into the pricing of AI, a lot of it is moved to credits. I know Lindsay and team have tested some of these products moving on credits. To me, it's like, remember when you used to pay per text, and then text got out of hand, right? This is the same thing, right? So that's kind of where we are right now. So I think moving away from a credit-based kind of environment, which you see mostly in development, not so much in the pragmatic tools that we use every day, but the cost certainly is going to move on. Then so the cost is causing everybody to say, wait a minute, what am I doing? And I want to say that I don't think that's a bad thing, because you can automate the hell out of crappy processes, but the truth is you're still going to have a crappy process, right? So the idea here is to make sure that your process is really, and look at Jess lighting up because she runs process engineering.
Absolutely.
We come in, it's not usually because their software is failing, it's because their process is messy. And let's not forget the fact that, when we first launched into the ATS back in 2005, Taleo was the guy, right? They really were the first to come. There are others out there, but to come out and do this heavy lifting, right? And they automated the candidate processing. And that's really what the ATS is built on. Most talent acquisition runs everything off the ATS with all these plugins to collect things, right? So what if you could go back and influence in 2005 and influence the direction of those technologies? My point here is that you're the influencer. The more you use it now, Do the pilots that are brought to you, put that little bit of time in there, convince your uplines that this is what you should be doing, because you're going to influence AI and its learning modules. We want to be there. We want to be the ones that are doing that. And if it's for free, and I got to tell you, they might tell you they're going to charge you an arm and a leg once you have a conversation. And a lot of these organizations will launch it for free. You use it for 2 days and you figure out it's a fail. But I will say that we are seeing more now pass than they did even, this time last year for sure.
Mhm.
So I think really getting your arm around that. And then lastly, I think what keeps me up at night as far as what will pause AI, it's storage, right, and power. What's happening is AI could decimate an entire community, and there's those out there saying that that's what's happening. I would be remiss to say that I know that for sure, because I've just taken a glance at some of these lawsuits that are out there. But I mean, do you want giant computer farms in your backyard? I mean, one of the things that our T group yesterday was telling me is the water in some of these areas, it takes so much water to cool it. It's almost like a higher density than a nuclear facility. So the water is changing and things are happening considerably different. So I think that's what might be some of the slowdowns. So we know that there's blockades. We know that there could be slowdowns. But I think for our purposes, the way things are generating, I don't see it having a tremendous effect right now. And I certainly don't see a giant halt coming to this. Okay. So the new rule, every channel, every time, AI is one option, not the only answer. I think this is where we go to, right? Because in one breath, I'm telling you, recruiting is going to be fully automated. The next one, I'm saying AI is not the only answer. It isn't, because, and I think it helps to look at it this way. So instead of, and the irony here is that I'm a big proponent of, you don't let your technology control what you're doing, because I really feel like the ATS is why we even created HireGate, right? HireGate's not an ATS. It augments the ATS to give you what you need that the ATS doesn't collect. But it's still driving the way we do things. So it's good to have that recruiter influence, right? But when we look at AI as an option, it's more like, if this is what AI is doing, where do we plug the people? As compared to, here's the people, where do we plug AI?
Well, I don't think AI is reducing the need for talent strategy. I think it's just raising the stakes for TA. Some companies are making this conversation more about technology when it really should be about workforce design, which is what you're talking about today, Christine, with the work architect. And we have more choices now, right? So as you're presenting this, we can either decide to hire externally, where to automate job responsibilities, to outsource, upskill, deploy, or use a combination of all those above. But I think talent acquisition is uniquely positioned right now to advise on those choices, because we're the closest to talent supply and demand. So some of the best recruiters, I think, in the past have always deeply been work architects. I think they're the ones that have challenged assumptions, advised hiring managers closely, and really have helped define what success actually looks like. So to me, AI is just simply accelerating that evolution of talent acquisition.
In a direction that we definitely, I mean, this is what we've been looking for, right? Like, how do you get to the table? This is the way, becoming the architect. So what actually works? The companies that win will figure out one thing faster than everybody else. Human work gets done in a world where humans and machines collaborate. Stop thinking in terms of jobs. Think in what works, task, and outcome. So no longer thinking in terms of jobs. We're thinking in work, tasks, and outcomes. If you change one thing, stop saying job description. Start saying work description. Stop using the term recruiter and use the term architect as you move towards being the architect. Think in work, task, and outcomes. Treat AI as a core option, not a tool, a fundamental workforce choice. This is not a tool. This is not an ATS. This is not a sourcing tool. It's a fundamental workforce choice that we're going to make. Become the designer, not an executor, an architect of how work flows. See how different that is? And in the pre-call that we were on, Lindsay was talking about how exciting that is, right? That you can now work on talent acquisition. You can now work on it. You don't have to be mired down in the mechanics of, how do I get this resume out, right? Or how do I you can spend a lot more time getting to know the business, discovering and learning about AI tools and organizations that are out there, or the outsourcing companies that are out there, or learning who your contingent staff is and how you should be taking a look at them as well. And to Jess's point, as we move it back into and take a closer look at the ecosystem, let's look at some of the priorities that are in play now, including internal and referral systems and how they might change as well. So if we've got AI in place, what is it that recruiters are looking at as far as this ecosystem is concerned? So if we look at posting and sourcing, prioritize quality over quantity, use AI tools, and track your performance. Referrals, measure referral quality fairly, incentivize all staff, benchmark and market. Can you imagine if you had this kind of time, right? If you're not piling through resumes and the AI is doing all of this heavy lifting for you, you can get much better and start better programs using AI to build your referral system or to decide where you should be posting and sourcing. Internal mobility, and this is what we were talking about earlier, right? So if a work requisition comes out, and part of the work is that it needs to be able to creatively create content and look for different ways to create content. And you know that you need a person, you need a genuine human being to do this, to get creative, to come out of the box, to teach AI and the rest of the system what to do. Now you say, I definitively need a person for this. Before you go outside looking internally and using AI tools in any one of the I call them the over the counters, right? Like your Claude, your Chat GPT, using one of the over the counters, you can then go in and say, how long would it take me? These are my core competencies to get that work done. This is the skill level that I need. How much of that exists in my internal organization? What departments is it in? And what should the progression look like? Once I know that, then I can say, how long will it take me to get there? So if this comes back and says, it's going to take, if you hire Lindsay tomorrow to do this job and you've got to train her up, it will take you 4 months. The cost of the organization will be I'm making numbers up, by the way, $16,000. And your cost to go out and find this person would be $19,000, but you need it in a faster time range. So you actually generally would need to go outside to make it a faster hire, right? So you're going to take and I'm just giving you one sample, all these variables in play to say, how do we create a better internal mobility? So now you're training up your internal staff before you even need them because you have the information that you need. So now instead of that $19,000 to go outside, the following year, you were able to train up faster because they're already trained. Now that bumps your cost all the way down to $10,000. So these are real scenarios using fake numbers. I hope this resonates with the group because I think this is a really important point. We've seen a lot of concentration on internal mobility, but without the infrastructure to support it, it's more like, who do we have internally to fill this job? Now, since you're the work architect, you're able to say, this is what we need, this is how long it's going to take, this is what the overall cost is today, tomorrow, and next year. Did that hit it, Jess?
Yes.
Okay. Continue. Evaluate your temps and contractors. This is a huge miss. In my opinion, it's a huge miss. Lindsay and I, a couple of years ago, sat with a large organization, and they had a $75 million temp and contractor spend, but they only had 2,500 internal employees, and they were trying to hire. Well, what about the internal contractors? Nobody was even looking at them because so often purchasing and contingent staffing falls under purchasing as compared to HR, especially in large organizations, and never the two shall meet. So then you're dependent on an MSP to tell you what the heck is going on. And then and I will tell you, HireGate augments MSPs, and when we come in, the information is so very, very different when you think about you have to understand, MSP providers are typically pushing more contingent spend because that's how they make their revenue. And the truth is, those contingent people might be a better internal move. This also lends way to outsourcing, which we're hearing a lot more about. And I'm not saying that from a recruiting standpoint. I'm saying that from a work standpoint, from an operational standpoint. Don't forget to take a look at that. And I think HR understanding core values more than just the workforce and holding those contracts with those providers is critical at this point. Not to mention, they have a lot of information that they can share with you too, as far as metrics and moving you into a work architect environment. Okay, screening tools. Automate screening, ranking, use AI for scheduling and declines. New tech often costs less than legacy. I really want to hit home on this because, a really good example I have when we were looking at ATS is we were looking at anywhere from $100,000 implementation cost to, like, I don't know, $20, $30 a month. We wound up with a really sophisticated tool. I don't want to promote any particular tool because we generally are agnostic, but I will tell you that we wound up paying $8 an employee as compared to a $100,000 implementation and $200 a month per employee. And that web-based program outperformed the ATS by a long shot. We know that because we've augmented 40 different ATSs as an RPO, right, Lynn?
Mm-hmm.
And that, by the way, was like 2018. So today, think about what one tool can save you. It's so worth it. You really want to get to the table, you find that one tool. You save the company $2 million, everybody's going to listen to you. You're going to be at the table. It's going to make a difference. And it's not as difficult as you might think. It's amazing to me. A lot of the technology is not there, but the ones that are there are huge cost savers.
And I have to say, do not be afraid to ask if you can try before you buy. I mean, this week alone, I've looked at 4 different AI products that have hit the market in the last couple of weeks. And I have no gripes asking, are you willing to give me a 30-day free trial for a couple different reasons? If you're not willing to give me a 30-day free trial, I lose a lot of faith that your product is going to do what you say it's going to do. And I say this from a product perspective. Having our own product on the market, if you call me and ask me if you can have a 30-day free trial, I'm going to say, no, I'll give you 60 because I believe in my product. I know what my product is going to do, and I know how powerful HireGate and its data is. So out of all the products I've tried this year, 3 were worthy of purchasing after the 30-day trial. Whether it was because I couldn't get them through legal or procurement, or they were just too expensive, or they were on those credits in particular Christine was referencing, which I would love to talk to you all more about because that to me is just a whole nother story. But moral of the story, don't be afraid to ask to try before you buy. A great vendor, a great partner will always give you that opportunity because they know their product works.
Some just want to find out if it works.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a comment question from Maurice. Maurice, as recruiters become architects, what do the architects become? Have we considered that? Yeah, I've given that a lot of thought. In other words, job defining functions, roles which are normally handled by others might push back on recruiters encroaching on their territories. This is a concern to be considered. I think it is a concern. I think we don't see enough of it in the organizations that we've worked with, including the Fortune 100s. So I think it's great if you already have this, can talent acquisition orchestrate it? I think there's a lot of room for orchestration. But I think first and foremost, most of the organizations we work with don't have that advantage right now. And also, there's still a lot of people trying to get their arms around that. The fact that you're on this webinar, that you understand this is going to be a morph or a miss, I think puts you at the head of the pack. Now, does that mean people are not going to be displaced? Yeah, I think work's going to change. It's going to change. And will these people be ousted? I don't think so, because as you become more affiliated with them, their operational knowledge will also increase as their position becomes more work-based as compared to task orientation. So that's the answer. Do I suspect that we're going to see like this long trajectory of a shakeup? Maurice, I'm going to say no, only because my experience working with Fortune 100s is that even though they might have this internally, it's not as united and put together. So I would see it more as a collaborative. Anybody else have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think there's always some friction when you have a transformation that comes through an organization, but the organizations that will come out stronger and win through this will be the ones that don't have teams protecting their boundaries. So I think they're the ones that are going to bring the best perspectives together from HR, workforce planning, talent acquisition to solve business problems and focus on the outcomes, not who's just owning the decision.
Mm. Well said.
Mm-hmm.
So Margaret is asking, may I ask what tool is? Does it automate scheduling? I think that might have been a
So
question for you, Lindsay, but
I think so too. Margaret, we looked at a lot of scheduling automation tools, and a lot of your ATSs are going to now have one that's either a bolt-in or being built in. The one that I sway to more than anything else would absolutely be under the Paradox label, the Liv or the Olivia scheduler is the one that our team adopted for a large client this year. And we've reduced scheduling time for our recruiters and our hiring managers drastically. I just don't remember that number off the top of my head. I want to say it's like a 20% time save overall, giving autonomy to the candidate to say, this is my true availability. I'm not just being pigeonholed into a small schedule. And the hiring managers, the autonomy to say, this is truly when I am dedicated and available to give these folks coming in for interviews my actual time. And, these scheduling automation tools for those roles that require you to be in office, require you to be in the field, require you to be on site, whether it's at a store location or a corporate location, they really allow you the flexibility from a hiring manager and candidate perspective to connect on timeframes that feel good and are going to give you, the best outcome possible. So it's if you want my honest opinion, a really great place to start to look at adding in a layer of AI if you have none right now is this scheduling automation, because you may not have to go through such a long process with legal or whomever is kind of keeping the gates around AI within your organization, because it's a simple bolt-in and it may already live in a system that they've already approved, which will get you through the process a lot faster. And so I love the way you're thinking, and this is really, if you're not already using automated scheduling, it's a really great first step in the right direction. Your recruiters will thank you and they will not feel intimidated by the choice you're making here once they realize how much more time they have to do the other things outside of scheduling.
let me just jump in a second. There's a lot of schedulers out there.
Yeah.
This is our preferred right now, but it is something too that our client pays for. That lives $1 million a year for many organizations. And it also is plugged into Workday. Now it's owned by Workday. So before you make, I just made a statement the other day too. Don't sign a contract for anything longer than 3 months, because the tool itself is probably going to change. Second, you don't know if they're going to be around in 3 months. And also you don't know what else is going to be out there in 3 months. So if you need to take these things into consideration. Who owns the tool? Because if that's going to change, so for example, if Smart Recruiters is now owned by SAP and your back room is Oracle, you're going to have communication issues. It's the same thing with a scheduling tool or any tool that you buy. You need to look at where it's going full term. And that's another reason why we try to stay agnostic. We can give you our experience, but that doesn't mean it's the right fit for you. Depends on what your tech stack is now, what direction you're taking, what your budget is, and all of those factors. I hope we answered the question for you, Margaret. Give us a shout back in the Q&A and let us know, or in the chat. Okay. Kevin is asking, what do you think a realistic timeline for TA organizations to adopt the work architect? Let me just make this 100% clear. It's when you say it is. And if you wait, somebody else is going to do it. If you don't do it, someone else is going to do it. So you tell me, when does it start? Because it's not like this idea is out there floating around with everybody yet. It's bits and pieces of it are. That's why we're announcing it today. By the way, we were supposed to announce it, but I broke my foot and couldn't do the presentation. Disclaimer, because I know there's people in this webinar that were looking forward to that and it didn't work out. Sorry, but back here. If we're the ones that are going to make the change, then we have to do it now. We're starting pilots with our clients now. We started pilots internally. You can start this without even having a genuine pilot. You can just kind of work through it in your own brain. For those of you who follow us, if you remember Avery, forget his first name, who was
Roy.
Yeah, and he did it. Is he on? Is he? Because he did a great job, right? He just used his own tools and pulled YouTube and automated his entire HR workflow. Mm-hmm. So impressive, right? He did that whole thing on his own, and then he's standing there saying, what do I do with this? I got to tell my boss. So I think it was, he's a really, really good example of somebody who embraced it. So I don't know, when do you want to become more efficient? When do you want to be in front of the game? Because it's all on us. I don't think you're going to get a call. And if you do get a call within the next week or two about this, certainly let me know. But the point is that we should be initiating. And if you want more help around those conversations, reach out to us. We can help you do that. We're doing that now. Okay. Any other comments? Coming up on time. So agentic AI, choose tech for task, not for habit. Now go back to what you knew. Go back to the task because again, these things are changing. Build strong tech partnerships. I mean, these are real partnerships. Lindsay was defining a partnership. That's a partnership. They listen to you, you listen to them. You're not too small in the game. You know, we recently signed with a large organization to help us with health benefits, and it is now taking us 3 weeks to get an answer on health benefits. So how fast do you think we're going to move away from that? Right. So it's really, really understanding how they can help you or not help you. Supervise and manage the bots. So where do you start? One role. Apply the work architect model to a single role. Audit your tech. New AI tools often cost less and do more than legacy systems. Build your ecosystem now. Be a part of the conversation, not just a buyer. Oh, Kevin, I think I'm answering everything that you asked. The future of talent acquisition is not filling jobs. It's engineering how work happens, becoming a work architect. So will we lead this change or are we going to be automated by it? That's the final question. So anybody else? Margaret said, yes, thank you. I think we had some polls here. If we have about 4 minutes left. So if you don't mind, I think we're going to try and pull those up. Here we go. I'm going to launch this. What are your top 3 concerns about AI and TA? So I just sent that out to you. What are your top 3 concerns? Job displacement, need to reskill, bias in hiring, compliance risk, data privacy, lack of transparency, inaccurate outputs. Lindy and Jess, can you see this scoring as I'm talking?
I can't see the scoring. I can just see the question that's up for the attendees.
Same.
Inaccurate inputs, is it? Oh, still going. Okay, gonna end the poll now. So job displacement. Job displacement was 47%. The need to reskill 13%. Bias in hiring 47%. So neck and neck with job displacement. Compliance risk 20%. Inaccurate outputs 40%. Let me share the results. And there you go. You have time for another one? I think so.
Yeah.
Oops. For some reason, I can't launch this. Maybe I have to stop the share. Stop the share. Okay. Who's involved in selecting AI tools? Talent acquisition, HR, IT, legal, procurement, or finance? I feel like I'm on Jeopardy.
Mhm.
Give it another 20 seconds. Talent acquisition. Who's involved in selecting AI tools? Talent acquisition, HR, IT, legal, procurement, or finance? Coming up on last 8 seconds. Okay. The results are talent acquisition 46%. That's good to hear. HR 31%, good to see. IT 69%, not surprising. Legal 31%, that's a pretty decent number. Procurement 15% and finance 31%. What's interesting?
The legal number is lower than I expected.
Yeah, that's because we're bumping into it a lot. So
Constantly.
yeah.
The last AI conference Jessica and I attended, The resounding theme was TA's frustrated, HR's frustrated because they've gotten their products all the way through to legal and then legal was not able to push them through. So just surprised from the feedback that we're hearing that they ranked that low, but for those of you out there that chose that, we feel your pain.
We do. How effective are your current AI tools? Very effective, 75%. Somewhat effective, 40%. I'm going to give it another 10 seconds. 67% somewhat effective, not very effective. We've seen those too, whoever you are. Very effective, somewhat effective. Okay, very effective wins it, or I'm sorry, somewhat effective at 64%. Very effective at 27%, and not very effective at 8%. What type of AI tools do you use? TA specific, ATS with AI, ChatGPT, Copilot, Gemini, Claude, internal AI tools. Wow. Okay, this is moving along. 88% use ChatGPT.
Oh.
45% Claude. These are very fluid, still moving. TA specific, 42%. ATS with AI 33%, ChatGPT is at 83%, Copilot 25%, Gemini 25%. I think we're going to see Gemini increase as they try to get that right on Apple, right? Claude is up to 50%, internal AI tools 25%, that's interesting, and other AI tools 17%. And then one more question. Are you currently using AI in your recruiting process? Yes, extensively. Yes, somewhat. Piloting, evaluating, or not using. See if there's anybody who's not using. Oh, okay, yeah. Okay. Yes, extensively, 55%. That's interesting. Yes, somewhat, 36%, and not using is 9%. So there's still people not using it at all. Interesting. Show the results while we're here. Okay. So we've come up on time. I'd like to thank you for attending. I'd like to encourage you to really consider this information. It's important to our profession. It's important to our talent economy as a whole. It's important to all of our organizations. If you're wondering where your job is going to go, I've got to be honest, I can't see it not being automated. I know there's a lot of people stuck there, but recruiting just fits the bill perfectly for full automation. So it may not happen tomorrow, but you do want to know that. And if you're going to stick with us, let's become the architects. Thank you for joining. I hope we see you again next month. Jess will send the deck out. If you'd like to be a part or join us, or you know a speaker that you'd like to have join us, certainly let us know. We're looking forward to a great summer. We hope you have one too, but we will see you again next month. Lindsay, Jess, anything? Last words?
I want to say, I think the irony in all of this is that the more AI we adopt, the more valuable our uniquely human capabilities become as talent acquisition specialists. So our judgment, our influence, communication, our adaptability, I think all that's going to matter more for us in the future.
Well said. Lindsay, any last words?
I just want to remind the group that's as old as me, if when I started in recruiting, there was no applicant tracking system. It was pounding the pavement and people came in and they dropped off resumes, things like that. This is not the first time that we've had to evolve in talent acquisition to become strong. And it won't be the last time either. There's no part about evolution of technology that's been easy to adapt, but we've done it in the past. So don't let the heavy lift that we have in front of us intimidate you now. We're at the finish line where we are getting to the point where we're going to find stability in technology. A year ago, I did not think I would ever say that to you, but I wholeheartedly believe that today. And so where this feels scary and we're all concerned about, what's going to happen to our positions in talent acquisition, I like to kind of go back to what Christine said earlier. We can leverage this to finally have the seat at the table we've deserved for far too long.
Ooh,
So,
and we're going to end on that note.
yeah.
Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you,
Mhm.
Jess.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Again, we'll see you soon, and reach out if you have any questions or concerns along the way. Thank you.